Another day, another draft, ladies and gentlemen. I feel like we're actually getting decent at these at this point. We're going to make sure that we warm up a bit, get in what's like a mock draft. We're going to get in a $3 schnauzer here, 20-second timer again. This is the tournament I'd recommend if you were new to Underdog. If you're new, though, I would definitely do the 30-second timer. But we are in the 20-second room, and there are 7 spots available in here with us if anybody wants to join this draft. And as we wait for this to fill, I will remind y'all that if you want to be able to draft with us, obviously, 1, be on Underdog, but 2, make sure that you hit the bell next to the subscribe button. That way you know when we go live and you can hang out with us in this stream. But we are going to be at pick 12. I believe we selected at 12 in the live stream yesterday. It doesn't feel as bad as being in the late first round last year because I do think you have access to some players that have insane level ceilings here at the 1-2 turn. So we will figure it out, ladies and gentlemen. But let me know what your feelings are whenever we are picking at the end. Like if you get pick 11, if you get pick 10, if you get pick 12, are you disappointed this year? Because last year, whenever we had pulled these late round spots, I mean, I would just be devastated because you knew you were not getting Jefferson. You knew you weren't getting Chase. You knew you weren't getting any real top end assets. But now, I mean, if you can pull yourself like a McCaffrey, it doesn't feel too bad. But Nix has had to stop watching the tight end video to come to the live. Thank you, my friend. And yeah, we put out our tight ends rankings earlier. So if you hadn't seen them, make sure you go pull them up. But Ryan out here at pick 6. We got Ken at pick 5. J-Mo in at the 10 spot. John out here in the chat. Jeff says feels decent about 11 and 12. And yeah, I feel much better about pick 12 this year than I did last. I'm obviously going to prefer the picks at the top if we can get them. But it doesn't feel as bad this year. Nick says, Mason, tell Jeep Neighbors is mediocre and he needs me to trade him in the Flock Dynasty. Hey, you got Russ. You got Russ. What else do you need? What else do you need? John says Flock meetup at Luby's South Lamar. Hope y'all can make it. When I go back to Austin, if you can confirm that there is still a Luby's open, last I checked, they had all shut down, but I will go. I'll be eating with the grandmas, but I'll be getting me some good catfish, some good mac and cheese. It'll be delicious. Jeep Guy says, you know I'm a Giants fan, but no Theo Johnson in the top 34 tight ends. Let me pull up. What was the official Theo Johnson stat line last year? I know he was getting some round 18 buzz in these Underdog drafts. To be honest, I didn't even consider throwing him in our top 34 tight ends, but maybe I overlooked it. McCaffrey goes. Sadly, we aren't going to get him. So instead, we will double tap wide receiver. Y'all know I'm an idiot, so I'm not going to be taking much Derrick Henry here. The running back I will be taking at the turn will be McCaffrey. But if we don't get McCaffrey, I'm fine taking Nico Collins and Brian Thomas. But let's pull up, what did Theo Johnson do last season? So, of course, this is flogfantasy.com, completely free if y'all ever wanted to go check this out. Just click any player on the rankings page, and you can see all the relevant stats. So Theo Johnson had 11% team target share as a rookie, played 84% of the snaps, which is actually surprising. Obviously, doesn't play the entire season, but finishes the tight end 36. Horrible efficiency, 1.03 yards per out run. So he got on the field, but didn't do much when he was. But observations of life says Theo Johnson's better than Tyler Warren. Aggressive. John says they're meatloaf slabs. I'll give me some catfish meatloaf. Dangerous combination. Just like Nico Collins and Brian Thomas are a dangerous combination at the 1-2 turn. Some would say they are like meatloaf and catfish. And honestly, really excited to see where this draft goes through the next few rounds. When you go wide receiver, you get a lot of flexibility in these Underdog drafts. But I'm pretty excited. Seahawks fan says, when you say positive TD regression, say TD progression in videos. Positive regression and progression are two different things. I completely understand like where you're coming from, but positive regression and progression are two separate things. Progression is you're getting better over time. Positive regression is you're just reverting to the mean. I mean, please let me know in the chat if I'm wrong here, but that's my understanding of it. The team at 1 also goes with 3 receivers out the gate with Chase, Wilson, JSN. Will be interesting to note this little play here at the very top of the first round, given very different team constructions. But, of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not done so already, please make sure you drop a like on this live stream. And if you want to join one of these drafts with us, y'all know we've been drafting on Underdog Fantasy for years. Once upon a time, I actually won a decent amount of money on this, rumor has it. But yeah, super fun. They're best ball, so no time commitment at all during the year. That's why it's not going to replace your main fantasy football league. Just a little bit of extra fun on the side. And if you wanted to join a draft with us or a draft in the public lobby, like this is the Schnauzer, this is the tournament I would recommend y'all getting on. $3 buy-in, $100,000 for first place. You can find the link to Underdog Fantasy in the live chat description and comment section. And if you use promo code FLOCK, you will get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, on top of that, you'll be getting our free 2025 Fantasy Football Draft Guide cheat sheet. But Underdog's available in these states. You can see the map here. We need to update it with New York. They just had to reapply for their fantasy sports license there, but everywhere else should be up to date. Let's move this over. Devontae Adams goes 33. So we have a lot of flexibility because we start wide receiver, wide receiver. Now, in terms of if we wanted an elite quarterback, between Allen and Lamar, we could go with either guy, but also having Nico Collins and Brian Thomas, it does set us up in a spot where we can target Stroud later. We can target Lawrence later, especially if we were to go like Xavier Worthy. We had also opened the door for us to get Mahomes. Josh Allen goes. So we're going to try something maybe a little different. We're not going to take Lamar. Y'all know I drafted a ridiculous amount of Lamar last year. But specifically because we have some of these options with Nico and Brian Thomas, as we mentioned previously. And again, if we take Xavier Worthy, we open the Mahomes door later on. Let's take Breece Worthy at the 3-4 turn. Set us up with 2 high upside wide receivers going into their second NFL seasons, an alpha wide receiver, Nico Collins, and hopefully an anchor running back in Breece Hall. Reggie wanted a Duval and Travis Hunter in round 3. I know a lot of people would be looking at Hunter to get the double stack with Brian Thomas, but I'm just not. Jacob says, do you ever see Flock Fantasy doing best ball or dynasty keeper leagues at some point? Probably not. At least definitely not on the roadmap anytime soon. But if I'm assuming this is in reference to what we put out over there on flockfantasy.com, y'all can check out that we actually put public mock draft lobbies for dynasty leagues with dynasty startup drafts and dynasty rookie quarterback. We actually just updated the private drafts as well to include the 3rd round reversal. We had a bunch of different updates just in case y'all haven't seen them. I can go through the list of updates really quick that was over there on the site. Just go to if you're in the Discord, go to the announcements tab. I'm going to keep y'all up to date with what the developers put out every single week. And this is what they put out last week. So I'm not going to look at everything right now just because we're doing this draft. But yeah, a bunch of those mock drafts on the site did get updated. And on the list of to-dos for the devs, and hopefully it's out by the end of the month, is if you are a mother flocker over there on the site, we'll make sure that you got a way to get set up with free $10 on Underdog. But yeah, I'm working my butt off on the site with the developers every single day, hoping that it's even every single week. It should be noticeably better. Seahawks fan asking if there are redraft mocks. No redraft mocks so far. There obviously will be once we get closer to the redraft season. It's just like in May, this is the time where I'm not really doing any redraft stuff. I'm doing all best ball myself. And then obviously dynasty on top of that. So from my perspective, this is really like the dynasty and best ball time period and not so much redraft. But we got Jay out here. Happy to see you, my friend. And got to hear about your setup with LT. Alpha says, which app do you use to check the stats in your videos? That's flockfantasy.com. That's our site. Again, that's one of the many updates that we've put out as of late. And we are actually about to put out another big update with that, include some more stats for y'all. But yeah, if you're wanting to know like where the yards per route run, the target share, and all that jazz comes from, it's literally just pull up the rankings page on the site. And then when you click on any player, it drops down and you can see all their statistics. So yeah, it's just flockfantasy.com, my friend. Okay. Big Dog Status says, how do I get an aura like you? You got to be born with it, my friend. It doesn't just come to anyone. Okay, so let's move this around. Quarterback, nobody's in play here. The best quarterbacks on the board would be Mahomes, Baker, Caleb. Mahomes has an ADP of 80. We can get him on the way back around on the other end. I think we may just reach on George Pickens. Is there anybody else that we really want to go with? Taking Pickens does open us up to Dak later in this draft. Trevion Henderson versus Kenneth Walker. I probably prefer Walker. Wide receivers that we'll have available to us later won't be too different than the guys on the board right now. So let's take Kenneth Walker, 61. A-Rod says, I'll bet you Rome outscores Pickens. Not impossible to see. Because Rome has a non-0% chance to be the wide receiver one in his offense, right? Where George Pickens does have a 0% chance being the dude over CeeDee Lamb. John says, take Walker just based on the photo drop today. Yeah, Kenneth Walker was looking like Mason Dodd out there. Let me take Kenneth Walker, and I'll show you all that beautiful Kenneth Walker picture we got. Okay. Like I said, looking like Mason Dodd. Dear God, freaking beast. Just says, how are you feeling about Sticky Ricky? I would rather have Ayuk, so I haven't drafted a ton of them. Radius says, after the tight end video, how does the value change for Ferguson and Frymuth, as it seems like the trade was made right after you recorded the video? Yes, sir. I was thinking about throwing an update. I can update the tight end rankings on the site for y'all right now into the best ball category. So previously, we did have Ferguson tight end 14 ahead of the tier of like Kincaid, Goddard, Pitts, likely. After the Pickens trade, I do think that he drops into this tier. I don't want to overreact and move him down too much, but I definitely would easily prefer Njoku, Loveland, Warren, Ingram, Tucker Kraft over Ferguson. So Ferguson does need to drop down a tier. As with Ferguson, like we said in the video as well, I'm never drafting him thinking like, oh, this dude is uber talented. If I'm drafting Ferguson, it's, oh, okay. He is in an offense that should have a decent amount of passing volume with very limited competition. So now that you have Pickens in, it is much tougher. MCP says, Mason, it's my girlfriend's birthday and we're spending it watching your stream. Can you say happy birthday? Aura. Dear God, brother. Happy birthday, Aura. And I thought we were going to keep us a secret. I didn't realize you were telling your boyfriend about us, but it's out in the open now. And MCP, I'm sorry you had to learn this way. Sorry, this is how it came to light. But we've all been there, my friend. We've all been there. Let's move this over. We got Brandon Ayuk off at 81. Let's go. Ricky says, I remember when Saquon was doing 36-inch box jumps with 85-pound weights in each hand. There's no way that's true. Okay, Shakir off 83. Quarterbacks here, nobody's really in play. We could go, I think we're going to go Swift And then let's take Hawk as well. I think we have the flexibility where we can afford the top end tight end with this team. And what Hawk does for us that we maybe need is, again, we haven't taken a quarterback through the first 7-8 rounds. So we need to make sure that we have some of these options for us later in the draft. So we take Hawkinson. This opens up McCarthy for us. So now we have Stroud, Lawrence, Dak, and McCarthy, and we're not really going to have to reach on any of them. We can just let whoever makes it to us make it to us. Okay. Let's see. Anthony says, who's your number one rookie this year? So this is something that I maybe have an edge on just because we look at all these rookies coming in from a dynasty perspective, right? So I've actually spent a lot of this offseason diving deep into this rookie class, and maybe I can provide some real value here. There's this guy that actually had a decent amount of production, gets all right NFL draft capital, was a great receiving back in 2023, and we didn't get to see him test fully, but should have tested great. I always butcher the pronunciation. It's like Ashton Gianti. Ashton Gianti. Something along those lines. But if I had to go out on a limb, the number one rookie running back this season is probably Ashton Gianti, my friend. Let's move this over. Hey, Rod says, just realized you got Nico and Brian Thomas Jr. Wow. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about this team. Maybe we should have gone Lamar instead of Brees. Again, I just think because those two wide receivers we take at the top, we have a lot of flexibility with the quarterbacks that we can look at later, that I'm not too worried about it. Cash Award says, I can't wait till the Cardinals an option on the site. Say the word, my friend. We'll get it on there for you. Jaden says, you might actually be able to go to a Texas football game this year. Texas plays A&M on Black Friday after Thanksgiving. I actually would love to go to the Texas A&M game. And yeah, that is definitely a time period of the year where I'm not as busy. So we may make it work. Okay. Jake says, Harvey taking a 48 here. Wow. Yeah, the team at 1 decided to pair up the rookie RBs with Harvey, Hampton, Caleb Johnson. Picks 48, 49, 72. I wouldn't go about it that way, but it was interesting to see. Baker Mayfield slides to 105. Andrews off the board as well. So is Zach Charbonnet. So Pittman is near the drop-off in tiers here, wide receiver for me. Fields you can take unstacked. We do have Brees, but I don't feel the need to do that. I almost... dear God, what do we want to do? We definitely want to take Pittman. Pittman's a no-brainer. Do we go Loveland, call it a day with 2 tight ends? I think we will. Fields, Purdy, Goff, we have no natural stacks for. I think we're going to get our quarterbacks later on. Let's go Loveland, 109. Great prospect profile. Really tough situation that he's stepping into. But I can't sit here and go like, oh, Shaheed's in a great situation. Like, Shaheed's in the worst passing offense in the league, or one of. So, I feel confident about the Pittman selection. The Loveland pick locks us into only 2 tight ends. And I don't know if that was the right way to go. I was considering Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman would have been the other guy I would have taken. Okay. One thing I got to, not flex, but I got to give myself some props on. Do y'all remember how often I would start these live streams and the microphone would be muted? I figured out how not to do that. I was about to start the live stream. I did my little test, saw the lights not go on, and realized the microphone was unplugged, and fixed that before we went live today. Old Mason wouldn't have done that. Old Mason would have hit go live, would have rambled for 30 seconds, then looked over at the chat and seen 1,000 messages saying, "You're muted, you're muted, you're muted." Realized that I botched it and scrambled to fix and take the live stream down and have to start the stream again. But we figured it out. We haven't done that in quite some time. Cash Clark says, why does everyone love Brian Thomas this year? Super easy to understand why people would be in on a player like Thomas. You go ahead and pull this up from his rookie season. As a rookie, you have a wide receiver 9, 8, 2, 16, 4, 3, 12. Brian Thomas Jr. as a rookie has like about the same amount of wide receiver 1 finishing weeks as George Pickens does through the first 3 years of his NFL career. Look at the target share near the end of the year. The last 5 weeks of the season, 40%, 32%, 37%, 47%, 35% of his team's targets. Ends his rookie season with 2.55 yards per route run in a garbage offense that had Lawrence injured. So, he was the wide receiver 4 in total fantasy points as a rookie. Now, obviously, they bring in Hunter. There are also a lot of exciting wide receivers in fantasy this year. So, I'm not telling you need to take Brian Thomas over St. Brown, over Neighbors, over Puka, over Lamb, over Jefferson, over Chase. But I'm taking Brian Thomas over any of the guys that go after him for sure. And let's move this over. And Alex says, Old Mason would have made a joke for 2 minutes with the beaver hat on and then realized his mic is off. Yeah, that I could. Does anybody else remember this? That is hilarious. That is so funny. Like, you literally are going to make me cry. That's so funny. Okay, let's move this back over. McCarthy goes, Hollywood off as well. Quarterbacks, we can go Dak and Stroud here. Pair up Dak with Pickens, which I actually think will be an underrepresented stack in this tournament just because there was a high percentage of teams drafted before the Pickens-Dallas trade. So I actually think it's a pretty high leverage stack to have. And then Stroud-Nico is a completely fine pairing as well. If you wanted to go Lawrence, Brian Thomas, you do you. Makes no big difference to me. It's just really who you want. And again, that's why we decided to pass on the elite quarterback in this draft, because it was probably going to be easy for us to get a couple stacking options, just given how many of those skill positional guys we grabbed in good offenses. And we can still take a third quarterback if we get one that we like, making it to a set of value. Let's move this. Riley says, what's up, Flock? I've been in the streams for 3 years now, but never talked in here. Going to try to be more active in the chat this season. Got to get locked in for my redraft league. Well, thank you, my friend. Happy to see you. And yeah, if y'all watch these live streams a lot and have never said anything, say what's up. Turtle says ETA on the hairline transplant. So I looked into this and still strongly considering. Don't get me wrong. But the issue is, if you get a hairline transplant, you can't like work out, like you can't sweat for like 3 months or something ridiculous. So like, it's either I can do the races I want or I can have hair. Now, if it gets to be a real tough scene in a couple of years, maybe we take 3 months off working out or whatever it may be and get the new hair. But for now, Benny says it's only 3 weeks. I'm not that cooked. Emphasis on that cooked. I'm a little cooked. But That's why I figured we can wait a couple years. If we're still doing YouTube in 3-4 years and it keeps getting worse, then we'll see. Or we'll just go full helmet all the time. That is always a consideration. Real Royalty says, hey, Flock, do you like where DK is getting drafted? If the Steelers don't bring in a veteran quarterback, no. If you think the Steelers bring in a veteran quarterback, then yes. But you really need a different quarterback in that room if Metcalf's going to return value, in my opinion. So let's smooth this over. Again, we're definitely done at tight end. I think quarterback we maybe have a little more optionality with. Now, there is a player that may or may not be screaming my name on the board right now. But we'll see if he makes it to us. Quentin Johnson, JMO. You just made the biggest mistake of your life, my friend. You just made me your number one enemy. Grindo off. We can go Jalen Noel, pair him up with Nico Collins and CJ Stroud, get that double stack. And then also running back is completely fine for us to draft here as well, right? I'm looking at quarterbacks with Young, Stafford, Geno. No easy stacks where it just is a no-brainer for us to take them. So we'll take Tyler Algier as our running back 4. And I'm fine with what we did at the turn. Now, would I preferred the big Q? Possibly. But it is what it is. Let's smooth this over. Benny says, you should go to Turkey with your hair, then make a vlog about it. I'd watch that. Here's my thought process with the hair. If I was going to get a hair transplant, and of course, I'd need to look into this a little bit more. But that would be something I wouldn't, like, I'm very cheap on most things. Like, I am too cheap a person, I would say. But that would be something I wouldn't want to cheap out on. Like, a medical procedure, if I would be willing to pay, like, triple the cost to do it, like, in a major U.S. city, if it was going to be 10% better, you know? But again, looking like we're not able to do it anytime soon, at least. But it says, start taking some Torrey Horton. He could easily be the wide receiver 2 in his offense once Kupp inevitably gets injured. Or he could be like the wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5, and never see the field. A guy that I have been considering mixing in, somebody that I was taking at the last pick in round 18 in August, was Roman Wilson. I've thought that Roman may be viable now that you had the pick and steal. Benny says mine was $3,500 plus the flight, which was $1,500 and a room. So about $5K total. Not too bad. Now this is good. Punishment for this year's Flock League. You have to donate your hair to the winner. Not going to lie. Danny has some pretty good hair. Danny has nice hair. Badaki has nice hair. The devs have really good hair as well. Thomas, the editor, has great hair. Avery has a great hairline. There are only a couple of us that are cooked. Okay. Jonathan asking if we own any jerseys. I own a Giants Odell jersey, an Oakland Raiders Amari jersey, a Sammy Watkins Bills jersey. And what else do we have? An Arch Manning UT jersey. We have a hockey jersey, a soccer jersey, 2 soccer jerseys, one Austin FC and then one France International, like the France national team. We can take a third quarterback here if we really wanted to. Grab Anthony Richardson with Michael Pittman. And then F it, we'll take Tillman too. I think this may be the first team we draft Tillman on. Let's take Anthony Richardson as our third quarterback. Okay. Sadly, I haven't had the QJ jersey. JN does not have an Arch jersey. Disappointing, my friend. Jan, what do you think on this? Corey was telling me, because obviously everybody in Dynasty is like hyped about Manning in next year's class. And he was saying that there's no way Manning only plays 1 year at Texas and goes to the NFL. Like, is Manning going to give 2 years at Texas? I know it's way too early to know, but Riley says favorite college football player to watch of all time, not from Texas. If I'm going like favorite highlights to pull up and revisit watching, and of course, hook 'em horns. And I'm not a big partier, so it's funny that this is my guy. But watching some Manziel highlights, it's hard to get better than that. Alex says Manning playing at least 2 years. Radius saying, why is Jalen Wright being taken so late? Love his current value. Late round running back in a garbage running back class that didn't really show much as a rookie, and they add in Ollie Gordon. And he shouldn't have many usable weeks if you do have HN healthy. I'm not saying like it's a bad pick where he's going, but he doesn't really stand out to me. Like, let me pull this up. Am I wrong in saying that Jalen Wright didn't show much in his rookie season? Did we get any usable weeks? Yeah, 0 top 30 weeks as a rookie. 27% juke rate's decent. Nothing as a receiver. 8 receiving yards off 6 targets. But Jan says, Corey's right. The Mannings have been fairly open, hinting that he's going to play more than 1 year. And yeah, the thing is, too, I saw that, one, I saw on my Instagram Reels that, like, he's doing Uber ads. Like, he was doing, like, an Uber and Waymo ad, which is crazy. Like, you know you're getting paid serious money for that. And then also his NIL was, like, $10 million a year. So it's like, if you are getting paid $10 million a year openly in college, you really don't have any rush to come out. Like, I already told you, I think Ewers should have transferred and taken an NIL bag. And I think we can say the same thing about Shadur Sanders. Sanders should have stayed in college another year and just gotten the NIL money. Loop says, are you excited for the rivalry jerseys? As a Cards fan, I'm hyped. To be honest with you, I didn't even see him. Rivalry jerseys. Nike launch rivalries program with new uniforms. Let's check these out. What is this? Okay, do I have to get past an ad to see him? Let me search it on Twitter. Rivalry jersey. Starting this season. Okay, this is rivalries. Nothing brings. Okay, can I see the actual jerseys? I see like the announcements. Okay, I see like this Bills one. Oh, this Cardinals jersey looks clean if that's what it is. Okay. Deontay goes. I may consider taking 2 running backs. We at least need 1 running back. Take Chubb just because I don't know who else to take. Yeah, we're going to take 2 running backs. Wide receiver, we have Nico, Brian Thomas, Worthy, Pickens, Pittman, Jalen Noel, Cedric Tillman. Who else do we end up taking? Do we just go Jaleel McLaughlin? F it. Let's do it. And let's hop into a little bit of a higher stakes draft now. Let's go ahead and let's get into Best Ball Mania. Okay, let's move this over. Okay, we are in. Let me update this little price tag. Okay, we are in at pick 8. Pick 8 should be outside the top tier of 6 guys. We should be looking at like Puka, Genty, Neighbors, St. Brown. Y'all know I've reached on St. Brown here. Caesar's correct. Let's see. Lube says they haven't been revealed yet. My fault for the blue ball. Okay, that's why I hadn't seen anything. Riley says the thing about Ewers is if he transferred, he'd probably not get a shot in the NFL and be seen in a bad light returning to Texas. Being a lifetime Texas quarterback's worth more than a year of NIL. Which I just don't know if that's true. Okay. Okay, we're going to test this out. Jake says, how much of a delay in the stream and real time? How about this? On 3, everybody send a message saying test in the chat, and we'll see how long it takes. 1, 2, 3, test. Send test in the chat. And we'll see how long this takes. Pulling them up as soon as I see them. Okay, we got one. Test, 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 test. So 5-second delay, which is pretty crazy fast. Like, it's hard to remember exactly, but I feel like the internet now is so much better than when I first started streaming. Okay. We are on the clock. We almost had access to Gibbs. Instead, we are going to get Puka. If I got Gibbs at pick 8, I would have been freaking pumped. Browner says, what do you think about Harvey? I think he's an uninspiring prospect in comparison to where he went in the NFL draft, but he gets the draft capital, and with that, he gets the perfect landing spot, so I'm okay taking him in fantasy. I don't think he's a Kamara level receiving back. I know some people have made that comp just because of the coaching staff. Okay. Let's move this over. Nico Collins goes pick 12. Ooh, crap. Did not mean to do that. What are we going to get with Puka? Nick says, what are you doing to pick 9, Mason? Personally, can't bring myself to take Genty over Neighbors and St. Brown. And like Best Ball Mania, I'll mix in Genty. I've been hopping in some slow drafts of like the Marathon and Eliminator. In there, I'm pushing down the rookies just a bit. So like for the Marathon, I've been going with St. Brown. Okay. Riley says Henry at 10, faceplant. And we get Taylor at 15. That team going Henry and Taylor for a unique build. We will get Bowers paired up with Puka Nacua. Here's what I'm going to try to do. We are going to try our absolute best to not take TJ Hawkinson, to not grab any of these mid to low end tight end ones in this draft. Now, if we get a crazy fall rounds past ADP, then sure. But I'm going to try my absolute hardest to instead wait until round 15, 16, 17, 18 to get another tight end. We'll see if I can control myself. It's not the easiest thing for me to do. I don't have great self-control when it comes to average tight ends. Okay. Caesar says, have you drafted a lot of Best Ball Mania? We've only drafted Best Ball Mania teams on the live stream. And Frosty, the only creators we're going to have in the Flock League are creators on the site. At least fantasy creators, that is. Derek says, besides White and the Big Q, what are your favorite picks based off ADP? Taking a decent amount of Brandon Ayuk if you're looking for like a middle round guy. Favorite round 3 pick, maybe Chase Brown. We're to take Rashee Rice. Obviously, Rice has been a big-time riser since the tournament's dropped. And again, I want to reiterate, if Rice truly has no suspension or injury risk, the dude probably ends up getting drafted up next to like Drake London by the time we get to August. I just don't have a perfect read on the legal side of things or the injury side of things. So there's definite uncertainty when drafting Rashee Rice. And for that reason, if I'm like drafting in the marathon or the eliminator, I'm probably not aggressively targeting him in round 3 in comparison to somebody like Devontae Adams. But here in Best Ball Mania, where we are trying to optimize for weeks 15, 16, 17 upside, I think Rice is probably a good guy to go for. Okay. Of course, Mr. Vetri will be in the Flock League. Sword says, some idiot and a puppy drafted Packers for the first 10 picks. Will Underdog boot it? I would imagine. Obviously, I don't know exactly, but whenever I've seen drafts like that in the past, yeah, they have gotten removed, and you obviously just get refunded. So Josh Allen, Mike Evans, both go early round 4. This team, Clint, decided to go 0 receivers through the first 3 rounds with Lamar, Henry, Taylor. Definitely a very unique combo. DJ Moore goes 39. Let me look at something. Where did A.J. Brown go? Worthy goes. That sucks. So it's going to go ahead and reach on Devonta Smith if the A.J. Brown team was on the other side of us so we could get Hurts in the next round, but we wouldn't get Hurts making it back around to us. So honestly, we may just end up taking T-Mac, Teteria. I'm just going to call him Tet McMillan. Great prospect profile. I know we've talked about this a ton. And goes to an offense that has a quarterback that seems to be trending on the way up with very little target competition as well. Yes, I agree. It says, I feel DJ Moore's ADP is way too high. DJ Moore definitely falling in these drafts. I mean, we can go through and look at what DJ Moore has done over the past few seasons, but you had the phenomenal finish 2 years ago with Fields, but outside of that, it's not like DJ Moore's ever given you like a true difference making season. Like this past year, you got 4 wide receiver 1 weeks from DJ Moore. And now you do have Rome Odunze going into year 2. You have significant target competition added in with Loveland and Burden. So, not going to argue against you when you're saying DJ Moore is going too high. But DJ Moore has also been falling in these tournaments, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if DJ Moore is going down there at the 4-5 turn when it's all said and done. Okay, DK Metcalf goes pick 52. Jameson falling a bit in this draft. I like how everybody was flipping with RJ Harvey going to pick 48 when he has an ADP of 55. Jameson off the board at 54. If we do end up getting Chuba making it to us, we can take Hubbard, pair him up with McMillan, and make this a Panthers team. Looking at the teams after us, we could get a little cheeky here. Yeah, we're going to take Hubbard. Was thinking that a couple of these rosters really need receivers, like Clinton, who only has DJ Moore, and B. Sanders only has Nico Collins. So I was thinking we could potentially take Waddle and still get one of these running backs like Henderson or Harvey on the way back around. But what stopped me from doing that realistically is, well, I can look at the splits with and without Tua to show that Waddle's been a lot better, obviously, when Tua's played. This dude just has gotten much worse over the past 3 seasons. Go back to his second year, he's the wide receiver 7 in total fantasy points. Then that falls to the wide receiver 30. Then that falls to the wide receiver 45 this past season. The efficiency has fallen from 2.8 yards per route run down to 2.7, down to 1.6. The target share is only at 16.5% this past year. Now, obviously, it looks much, much better in games that Tua plays. But it's a tough scene. Deebo Samuel goes 63. So we do get one of these running backs making it back around to us. We will take RJ Harvey. This may be the first draft that we've done so. Again, I want to reiterate, I don't think he's like a super special talent. But if we are looking at situations, he has a clear path to a decent amount of touches in a good offense week 1. So we'll take Chuba 56, RJ Harvey 65. And so far, wide receiver, we have Puka, Rice, McMillan. Tight end, we have Bowers. Running back, we have Chuba and Harvey. So offense that we are in on really at this point is the Carolina Panthers. Okay. Yeah, yes, I agree. It says, true, even with games with Tua is usually throwing to Jonnu. Yeah, I'm going to have a difficult time projecting out Jonnu this year. Like, again, I talk about this in the tight end rankings that came out already. But I don't know. If I'm looking at Jonnu, it's just such a small sample where he has been a fantasy relevant tight end that I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if it just ends up being a random blip on the radar. Okay. Judy goes 76. It was like decent value for Judy there. Caleb goes 77. We have a very well-balanced team where we can almost have whatever fall to us and we're going to be fine. Judkins goes... So, Mahomes, best available according to ADP. I like Ayuk here, but the thing is, we have Rashee Rice, and the team that has Worthy is right after us. So, if we pass on Mahomes, the Worthy team's going to have to pass on him twice for us to get Mahomes on the way back around. So we can just play it safe. We can go ahead and draft Patrick Mahomes and call it a day. Caleb goes immediately after. Caleb wasn't somebody that we were considering, so that's good to see on our end. Aaron Jones goes. I feel like we may not have much Aaron Jones this year. Like, I'm fine seeing him go. Okay, Brian Robinson off. Again, like I said at the top, we are going to try our absolute best once we take Brock Bowers to not get suckered in and to not take TJ Hawkinson here at 89. I want to. We've done it in a lot of drafts. I would have much preferred Ayuk. And I feel like we're going to get suckered in anyway. Let me pull this up. Hawk versus Cup. We'll take Cup. I really want to take TJ Hawkinson there. But if I didn't take Bowers, Hawkinson would have been the easy pick. You go back and look at Hawkinson last season. Of course, only 47% of the snaps in the games that he played because he was coming off a significant injury. But when he was on the field, 2.61 yards per route run. Like when he was on the field, Hawkinson was great. And projections-wise, I think you can make an argument that Kupp and Hawkinson project out similarly this year in total fantasy points. Typically, those points are harder to come by at tight ends. But, yeah. That was a tough spot. Yeah, the devs didn't almost win it all. Who almost won it all was the editor of this channel, Thomas. Our editor, I mean specifically my editor, almost won it all. So don't give the devs credit. They did not come close. The devs had like one team in the playoffs. Okay. Nick says, this is the range in drafts where I have no idea what to do. Board is gross unless you have a quarterback there. I mean, if we had Ayuk make it to us at 89, I would have had no questions. We would have taken Ayuk and I would have ran for the hills. Even though we maybe shouldn't have even considered Ayuk, considering the fact that we do have Rice and McMillan, a couple of guys that may not give us the points that we need at the beginning of the season and may backfill them anyway, which you could say the same thing about Ayuk's profile here. Yes, we actually had Thomas. Thomas won the knockout, and he almost won the league. Thomas put on a show. Let's move this down. Justin Fields goes pick 100. So right now, quarterback, we have Mahomes stacked up with Rice. Running back, we have Chuba and RJ Harvey. Wide receiver, we have Puka, Rice, McMillan, Kupp, and tight end, we have Bowers. Kelsey goes 101. John says, do you think the board will shift a ton when the schedule does release? I think it will shift over time. I don't know if it's going to shift immediately. We will take Egbuka. Don't feel great about it because this is another example of a player that should probably put a lot of his production in the second half of the season. I mean, if he does hit that upside case. Positives, high volume passing offense, great prospect that gets round one capital that should be pro ready as well. Negatives, the dude very easily could be the wide receiver 3 in his offense. Kadarius Toney says, someone just took Tank Dell at pick 110 in his draft. Y'all saw the official report, right, that Brooks is out for the entire year? So, I don't know if we'll get that confirmation with Dell at some point. It was funny that we already got it with Brooks. Okay, so I would prefer to take Najee here. If you look at our team again, a lot of the production that we have, if we are looking at upside, may come in the second half of the year where we don't have those points early in the season. You can see Rice being a better late year option than early year. McMillan being a better late year option than early year. Harvey being a better late round option than early year. Egbuka being a better late year option than early year. So Najee's maybe the flip side of that, where by the time we get to the end of the season, we assume that Hampton has absolutely everything in Los Angeles. But we'll figure it out. Billy says, do you think Pickens will be better in Dallas? I think he'll be better in Dallas, but let's just be on the same page of his starting point. Pickens has only been a wide receiver 3 and a wide receiver 4 in fantasy in his career. He's never been a top 24 receiver. Never come close from a points per game perspective. He's never even done it from a full points in the season perspective either. So do I think Pickens will be better? Yes. But even if he's a low-end wide receiver 2, that will be much better than what he was in Pittsburgh from a fantasy perspective. Like, I'm not going to argue with anybody saying that Pickens is going to put up a career year. But again, a career year for Pickens could look like a low-end wide receiver 2 season. Okay, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, both off the board. Let's see. Loop says, do you think Kingsbury can utilize Debo in an effective way? I've heard that narrative a decent bit, but I have taken 0 Debo Samuel this year. We're going to take Hollywood Brown. One, I actually don't mind the Hollywood price tag. Y'all know I hated where Hollywood was going in drafts last year. This year, it's like the same exact situation. And you are getting a 6th-round discount in comparison to where he was going last year. So I actually will mix in some Hollywood Brown. And then, yeah, pairing him up with Mahomes and Rashee Rice for the squad. Lawrence off 132. What are we getting? And yeah, I think you could consider like Kyle Williams, Jack Bashir. My thing is, we already had Ibuka, we already had McMillan, we already had Harvey, we already had Rice. We already have a lot of these guys that may not give us production at the beginning of the season. So for our team in particular, I would prefer looking at these names that can be difference-making players immediately. Ramondre goes 135. Spears off. I think we may look at a tight end now. I think we may go Kraft. I know we said we weren't going to be looking at tight ends until rounds like 15, 16, 17. But the thing is, I don't want to take another rookie. Jaden Blue, Isaac Rindo aren't getting it done for us. Reaching on Rachaad White over Tucker Kraft, you have a 15-pick ADP difference there. Tucker Kraft took a massive step forward in year 2 in comparison to where he was in year 1. Like, let's go ahead and let's look at this. Like, Tucker Kraft, year 1 to year 2, jumps from 56% of the snaps to 86%. Jumps from 1.24 yards per route run up to 2.63. Jumps from a 7% target share up to a 15% target share. Jumps from the tight end 27 up to the tight end 10. Like, Kraft is 100% trending in the right direction. A big issue that you may have, of course, is the fact that, I mean, they add in both Matthew Golden and Savion Williams, so you do have a considerable amount of competition coming into the wide receiver core. So I don't know how good it is, but what else am I going to do there? What else am I going to do? Happy to see it, Michael. Nick says Kraft is by far my favorite tight end in this range. I think you can make an argument for Ferguson to be in the same tier before the Pickens deal, but I think Ferguson has to fall post Pickens news. Let's see what RCU Bolt does. Goes Bigsby. So like I said, the guy that I would have maybe even wanted in the last round, we get anyway in this one with Rachaad White. Rachaad White, locked and loaded running back 2, kind of the worst case scenario. I mean, Najee Harris and Rachaad White are about the same, right? You know that they're the number 2 fiddle in their respective offenses. There's nobody on this planet that thinks Najee Harris will be playing over Hampton by the time we get to week 15. There's nobody on this planet that will be thinking Rachaad White's playing over Bucky Irving by the time we get to week 15. So we're all on the same page there, but I think you make an argument with both of these running backs. They have handcuff appeal where if the guy ahead of them were to go down, they are 100% giving you usable weeks. And I think you could occasionally see the usable week even with the running back ahead of them healthy as well. So I feel very comfortable about both those selections. Jake says, why are we so low on Christian Kirk this year? I can pull this up. But yeah, I'm not drafting Kirk really at all. I think we took Kirk once and he fell like 20 picks past ADP. So Palmer goes, we're going to take Tyler Algier almost for the same exact reasons what we said with Rachaad White. I think Algier is less likely to give you a usable week without Bijan getting injured, but clear number 2 running back in his offense wouldn't be the most surprising thing in the world if Algier randomly had 60 rushing yards, 15 receiving yards, and a rushing touchdown one week, and he pops into your lineup in best ball. But also, if anything were to occur to Bijan Robinson, Algier immediately becomes an RB1. And a lot of these other running backs in this range, you just frankly don't know their role in their respective teams. But we can go ahead and we can pull up Christian Kirk. Looking at Kirk, just uninspiring in my mind. 19.5% target share this past season, 20.5% target share the year prior. You look at what happened in the NFL draft. The Texans go wide receiver both in round 2 and in round 3. So realistic, like what's the upside for Christian Kirk in my mind? To be taking like Kirk at 134. I would rather have Hollywood. Bones says, think Shefty reported today teams laughed at the Steelers trying to trade him. Trying to trade Pickens? John says, rumors coming out he has a headache to deal with. Funny, he goes to Dallas. I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that Pickens is a headache to deal with. I think that's kind of the deal. Pull this down. Roshan's ADP has skyrocketed up. Again, we're done drafting tight ends. We can still go quarterback. We're going to go Darnold now. We kind of need another QB. We are sitting with Cooper Kupp, so we have a clear stack there. I wouldn't mind grabbing a third quarterback, but the issue is after Darnold, there's nobody. Like, we can go Dart, but we have no New York options. So, to be honest, having Mahomes and Darnold as my 2 quarterbacks, I definitely feel underweight quarterback. We may end up taking somebody just to get a third. But here at wide receiver, we have Puka, Rice, McMillan, Kupp, Egbuka, Hollywood. Tight end, we have Bowers and Kraft. Running back, we have Hubbard, RJ Harvey, Najee, Rachaad White, Tyler Algier. And where did we mess up on quarterback here? I mean, obviously it's not horrendous with Mahomes and Darnold, but I guess Darnold's really like the last quarterback you can take. Where did Stafford go in this draft? Stafford went 155. So yeah, us taking Rachaad White, which I feel like was the no-brainer pick, to be honest. We then pass on Bryce Young and Stafford, who would have been the natural quarterbacks to bring on with this team. Hopkins goes 183. So we're done with tight end. We're just quarterback, running back, wide receiver. We will go Alec Pierce. I think this is maybe our first draft taking Pierce. We've definitely taken a lot more Adonai Mitchell, a lot more Pittman. We've taken every wide receiver in Indianapolis a lot more than we have taken Mr. Pierce. And then I think we can still go with a 6th running back. Like, wide receiver feels a little bit light, but if Rice or McMillan turns out to be a wide receiver 1 alongside Puka, we may be okay. Bean says that Ginty contract is crazy for a rookie. Just saw it. I thought that the contracts were predetermined based off where they get selected, right? Unless I'm an idiot. So you should just have whatever contract comes with the number 6 overall pick, no? Yeah, 22 million guaranteed, 35 million total. Loop says, Mason, do you see Tyler Warren as a guy who could be close to Taysom Hill? So for me, when we look at players like Taysom Hill, they're so far in one direction as an outlier that it's almost impossible to try to comp a player to a guy like that. Right? Like, comp any, like, what's another player that we've seen like Taysom Hill over the past 10 seasons? Taysom's one of one. So I'm never going to look at like a one of one player in a decade and go, oh yeah, this is the next one of that. I think it would be way too tough to do. Okay. We are going to take... We'll take Jerome Ford. This is only going to be a 2-quarterback team. Mahomes, you better be 2018 Mahomes. You better be 2020 Mahomes. You better be 2021 Mahomes. If Mahomes is the same passer that he was last year from a volume perspective, our team is toast. We're done. But the hope with this team is Mahomes can get back to the passing volume that he had once before. And in that case, we probably need to have as many of these Chiefs pass catchers as we can possibly get our hands on. But let's go ahead and hop in another draft, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to queue up just a couple more guys here. Let's get Roman Wilson queued. I'd rather have Roman over some of these names. We're putting Jalen Royals and Horton at the top, of course, since we have the 2 quarterbacks there. Let's get into another Best Ball Mania. Let's do it. I feel like we've been doing good in these drafts. At least much, much better than we were last week. Which, this is like our 30th draft at this point. So it makes sense that obviously we are doing much better than we were before. Michael says, Mason, is it even worth starting to think about redraft, or is it way too early to determine rankings? It's way too early to set anything in stone. Like, say the peak redraft season is going to be in August, right? So we are 3 months away. So in my mind, it's probably not too early. Because and I know you may not necessarily go about it this way. I'm not saying you should. But say there are like 150 draftable players. If you look at 2 draftable players a day, you'll pretty much cover everybody by the time redraft season's here. Like by the time your fantasy draft's here. I would say it's definitely way too early to be looking at redraft stuff before the NFL draft. Y'all notice I really didn't put out anything before the NFL draft on the redraft channel. I would make an argument. I know not everybody would agree with me. But if you do the underdog drafts, at least the way that I do them, it definitely does prepare you for redraft season in a way that maybe just coming in August wouldn't. Like, legitimately, obviously I'll talk a bunch of crap, but if I'm being honest, I feel like I am not the favorite, but I'd make an argument I'm pretty damn close. I would make an argument I'm more likely to win the Flock League than anybody else, all right? That is my take. And I think a big reason for that is I will have 300 drafts under my belt, and I will feel very comfortable from almost any draft position. With almost anything that falls to me, I feel like I can make it work. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take Neighbors at 11. And we will pair up Neighbors with Nico Collins. And this will be a very rare combo. And you see that this is a weird draft in that we have Amon-Ra St. Brown going at 1. Now, I've talked about this before. I would bet that the team at 1 is not drafting Amon-Ra St. Brown there because they think that Amon-Ra St. Brown's that much more likely to outscore Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. I think probably the reason the St. Brown team's taking him at 1 is he's saying, well, you know what? Amon-Ra St. Brown gets selected at the 1-2 turn in every single one of these drafts. If I take Amon-Ra St. Brown there at 1, I'm actually going to get him with a completely different player combination than the rest of the tournament. I'm going to go St. Brown at 1, and then at pick 24, 25, I'll grab T. Higgins and Tyreek Hill, and I'll be the only team in this tournament with Amon-Ra St. Brown, T. Higgins, Tyreek Hill. So it definitely looks crazy, but it's a unique combo. So for the case of the overall tournament, it does make sense. But Kazan says that's rich coming from a guy who passed on Kenneth Walker. Yes, I may or may not have passed on Kenneth Walker for Terry McLaurin in the Flock League last year. Sue me. Sue me, my friend. Okay. James says, yes, different player combo, but at the cost of about 100 expected fantasy points across the season. But the thing is, realistically, what is the probability of Jamar Chase outscoring Amon-Ra St. Brown this next year? Like, let's really sit here and think about it. What is that probability? Is it 60%, 65%, 70%, 75%, 80%, 85, 90%? Because the NFL is random. A lot happens that you're not going to expect. We can go through and we can look at these wide receivers since they came into the league. We can see St. Brown versus Jamar Chase. The 4 years that they've been together, you've had 2 seasons where Jamar has outscored Amon-Ra St. Brown and 2 seasons where Amon-Ra St. Brown's outscored Jamar. So far, it's been a 50-50. Now, I wouldn't make an argument that it's a 50-50 this season. If I had to put the probability, I'd say Chase probably has a 70% chance of outscoring St. Brown. But especially if you're then considering like, hey, we really need to be thinking about it through the lens of weeks 15, 16, 17. In weeks 15, 16, 17, is it closer to a 60, 65% chance Chase outscores St. Brown? So, but my main point in backing up that team with their decision to do that is a lot of things in fantasy football are random. Not random, but maybe random's the right word. I don't know. But aren't projectable. And that could be one of them. We're going to try something different. I don't know if we've had many drafts so far this year where we've just gone 4 wide receivers out the gate. So let's try it. Let's go Neighbors, Nico Collins, Mike Evans, and Xavier Worthy. And let me follow back up with the team at 1. So my thought process with the team at 1, right, is if you're going for a unique combo, if you're going to take Amon-Ra St. Brown and then you're going to take 2 other players that could only go at the 2-3 turn. So you're going to take T. Higgins and Tyreek Hill. But once you take Rashee Rice, there all of a sudden you maybe lost me. Because Rashee Rice will go in the late 3rd. So instead of reaching on Amon-Ra St. Brown there at 1, I would almost rather just reach on Tyreek Hill at the beginning of the 2nd round, and you still get that unique combo of St. Brown, Tyreek, Rice, but you don't have to sacrifice the number 1 overall pick to do it, if that makes sense. But let's move this over. James says anything can happen isn't a strategy. It's not if you are looking at a regular fantasy football league, but through the lens of a tournament structure where you're trying to optimize for unique combos to leverage the rest of the field. Understanding the probabilities can give you a significant edge over everybody else. And of course, you're not seeing me go out there and take a Monroe St. Brown and pick one. But let's move this over. Evan says love loading up on the receivers. We'll figure it out. We'll see how this goes. But I really love the Neighbors Nico Collins start. And it will be interesting because the team at 12 decides to only go one wide receiver through the first 4 rounds, with that being Zay Flowers. But, of course, if y'all wanted to draft with us, if you wanted to hop in some drafts where Amon-Ra St. Brown's going off the board at pick 1, you can find the link to Underdog Fantasy in the live chats. You can find it in the description. You can find it in the comment section. These are best ball drafts, so there's no time commitment at all during the season. That's how I'm able to draft hundreds of teams while still focusing on the main team I care most about during the year. And yeah, if you use promo code FLOCK, you'll get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, on top of that, you'll be getting my 2025 fantasy football rankings and draft guide cheat sheet. And Underdog is available in damn near every state. You can see the map right here. We need to update it with New York, but outside of that, everything should be good to go. Okay. Let's pull this back over. So Burrow's not going to be in play for us. We don't have any of the Bengals. Kale Elliott in every single draft with us. I actually like Marvin in round 3 this year a lot more than where Marvin was going last year. Trevion goes pick 57. Let's see what A-Rod does. Goes Chuba. We will take RJ Harvey yet again, back-to-back drafts at this point. And I bet you we get Kenneth Walker as well, because this team only has one receiver, with it being Zay Flowers. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if you see them go wide receiver, which is exactly what they do. So we will get both RJ Harvey as well as Kenneth Walker here at 59 and 62. So far through the first 6 rounds, we have Neighbors, Nico, Evans, Worthy, RJ Harvey, Kenneth Walker. Potential quarterbacks, we have Stroud, Baker, and Mahomes we can be looking at. Jimmy asking if we don't like Kamara. To be honest, I haven't taken a lot of Kamara. We were off of him last year as well, which was a massive mistake given the amount of points he was able to put up. Underdog, it's a half PPR format, so the receptions matter a little bit less here. It is just going to be a tough spot for me. You're looking at an aging running back that should be in one of the worst offenses in the league that's not playing for anything. Like, Kamara turns 30 in 2 months. Now, of course, Derrick Henry just absolutely crushed at 30 years old. So a lot of people are going to be in on the train that age doesn't matter all of a sudden, even though we can look at the historical data set dating back to the year 2000 and show that, oh, trust me, it does. But, I mean, if he repeats what he did last year or the year before, he obviously will absolutely crush. Okay. Let's move this over. Myers off 79. We have a lot of flexibility with what we can be doing here. Did Mahomes get taken? Yep, that team at 1 decided to go with Mahomes to get the Rice stack. So Mahomes is not going to be an option for us with Worthy. Okay, Shakir goes 81. I'm not considering Shakir. The only time I would is if I was the Josh Allen team, which the Josh Allen team's the one that ends up taking him. A-Rod, see what he does. Does he take our guy Sticky Ricky? He does. Again, I'm not pumped to be going with the aging RBs here. We will take DeAndre Swift, where we've seen multiple top 24 finishes at the running back position through his career. And he's maybe set up with the best spot that he's had pretty much ever. The team after us reaches on Baker, which is interesting. We were planning on taking Baker to pair up with Evans. But once we don't have Baker, I do think we need to take a different pass catcher where their quarterback's going to be available to us later on. So we don't get Baker. We don't get Mahomes. Taking Hawkinson is going to give us the optionality where we can be looking at McCarthy later. So now our open quarterbacks are going to be Dart, Stroud, McCarthy. Ethan says Swift is such a bum. If you look at Swift, it actually is surprising to see the level of production that we've had through his NFL career. Where I'm not going to disagree. I'm not going to say like, oh, DeAndre Swift's a stud. How dare you call him a bum? But DeAndre Swift, if you're looking at total fantasy points, has been okay. The juke rates come down dramatically over the past 3 seasons. But he played 67% of the snaps in Chicago this past year. If you're looking at his RB finishes, every single year in his NFL career, he's finished as a top 24 RB. The target shares plummeted over the past 2 seasons, which is a massive concern back in comparison to what it used to be in Detroit. You look back at what he gave you this year, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 top 15 weeks. Now you have a much improved offensive line, quarterback going into year 2, new coaching staff with no competition added in. Roble says, if I join YouTube membership, does that apply to Flock Fantasy perks, or is it 2 different things? 2 different things. If you were considering YouTube membership or flockfantasy.com, YouTube membership gives you nothing compared to the site. Definitely do the site. And what I need to do for the YouTube membership, because literally all it does is change your little color in the chat, is I need to make it dramatically cheaper. I'll try to do that before. I'll definitely do that by at least this weekend. But we'll make the YouTube membership, and because literally all the YouTube membership does in the chat is change your color. Just say like, oh, I'm here a lot. So we'll try to make it like $3 or something. Okay. Matt says Swift over Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson's a better running back and on a better team. So let's look at this. Brian Robinson. Let's go DeAndre Swift's worst season ever. He was the RB20. DeAndre Swift's worst season ever. He was the RB20. Brian Robinson's best season ever, he was the RB21. And I know you're going to say, well, Mason, Brian Robinson's a lot younger than DeAndre Swift, isn't he? Brian Robinson's 26 years old. DeAndre Swift, 26 years old. They're the same age. Brian Robinson's best season ever is worse than DeAndre Swift's worst season ever. So that's my read on the situation. Of course, I could be wrong. We'll go Josh Downs. Taking Downs does give us the optionality to go with Anthony Richardson later on, which of course nobody in their right mind would be excited to take Anthony Richardson. But my fault that I screwed myself out of quarterback. Okay. Mark Andrews goes 108. Besh off the board after. Do we take Najee just for some gross RB touches and the handcuff appeal if anything were to happen to Hampton? Purdy, we have no stacking options. Goff, we have no stacking options. Neither do we with Herbert or May. So we will take Najee Harris at 110. Loop says, don't clap my boy Brian Robinson like that. It's not even that I'm like clapping Brian Robinson or like hyping up DeAndre Swift. It just goes back to like in fantasy football, it's very difficult to say like this player is better than this player. It's very tough to say that. It's very tough to know that. So like when we say like DeAndre Swift is a worse running back than Brian Robinson, it's like based on what? Because again, I'm not trying to say that I know right, or I'm not trying to say like, oh, DeAndre Swift's 100% a better running back than Brian Robinson. I'm not saying that. I'm saying like, I don't think you can say the inverse. Okay. C Money says Najee's more of a bum than Swift. I'm not going to argue with you with Najee being a bum. Issue with Najee, right, is you just can't get any big plays. Now, positive with Najee Harris is he's never going to miss any time. He's never missed a game in his NFL career. Juke rate is actually decent. He can make defenders miss. Every season, he's had a juke rate over 20%. Got up to a 10% team target share this past year. Was at a 14.5% team target share in his rookie season. And actually, what's hilarious is Najee Harris has been a top 24 running back every year from a total points perspective just because he doesn't miss time. Now, again, he's very clearly the RB2 in his backfield. He maybe has a few usable weeks at the beginning of the season. In the long term, the job will 100% be Hampton's. But it's best ball. We need somebody to give us a baseline floor when we know we don't have access to waivers. Okay, Stroud win at pick 123, which sucks. Goes to the Jaden Higgins team. And of course, we were looking at Stroud given the fact that we have Nico Collins. Ricky says 94 targets for Najee was crazy. You want to see something hilarious with Najee? We'll show in just 1 second. Let's see what A-Rod decides to do. If A-Rod doesn't, we're going to go Purdy, but he probably goes Purdy. He doesn't. I feel bad for A-Rod here because he had Pearsall, and he's probably assuming that I don't go Brock Purdy because we have no Niners and we don't have any Niners options, but we're at pick 131. I don't have a quarterback. I just need quarterback points to advance. We can worry about stacking and we can worry about spike weeks later. I need to get in the playoff tournament. So we are going to go with Purdy to just get quarterback points on this team. And then we'll follow that up with McCarthy to hopefully, when we need one, have a spike week with Hawkinson in weeks 15, 16, 17. We're going to get a third quarterback here as well, but we just needed quarterback points if this team's going to do anything. Okay. But let's look at this thing that's really funny for Najee, because we have Ricky saying 94 targets for Najee is crazy. So let's go to game logs, and you can do this. This is all on flockfantasy.com. I'm sure you've heard me say it 1,000 times, but you can go back to his rookie season. Does anything stand out to you about Najee Harris in this rookie year? Look at week 3 against Cincinnati. 19 targets. The dude had 19 targets in a singular week. Insane. He ran 48 routes and had 19 targets on them. Also had 100% of the carries that season. He had a 91% carry rate as a rookie and almost 15% of his team's targets. But that target mark is extremely inflated by that 1 week. Let's move this over. Maxwell asking if one of the receivers was out. To be completely honest with you, I don't even remember. Okay. Yeah, Big Ben was the quarterback back then. Right? Because Pickett was 2022. Najee came in 2021. So I assume it was Big Ben. Okay, so looking at our squad, I like it, don't love it. Wide receiver, we have Neighbors, Nico, Evans, Worthy, Josh Downs. Running back, we have Harvey, Walker, Swift, Najee. Tight end, we have Hawkinson. Quarterback, we have an unstacked Purdy. And we have McCarthy paired up with Hawkinson. Okay. Let's move this over. We can still take another tight ends. Tua goes 149. Kincaid goes 150. Penix off 151. I was kind of hoping we were going to be able to go Penix and Pitts at the turn, but looks like that is no longer an option. I don't want to say too much just because obviously we are streaming this. Cam Ward goes 152. The team behind us is sitting with Lamar and Baker. So if we want a quarterback, we're going to get that quarterback at 158. Team behind us is CMC and Aaron Jones as their two running backs. So we'd assume that they're looking at RB. Let's see what A-Rod does. I'm assuming he goes Pitts with no tight ends. He goes Algier instead. So I actually really like the Pitts price point, and I would like to go Kyle Pitts here if we could. But the issue is going to surround our quarterback position, where we just really need another quarterback to hopefully correlate with somebody on this roster. So instead, we are going to go with Leggett and Bryce Young. Because again, we are really missing out on quarterback points. So that gives us at least a chance at a spike, but Kyle Pitts there at 160 is a great pick. Actually, that was Zach Ertz. If you get Kyle Pitts after Zach Ertz, I got to applaud you. Again, my plan A there is I would have liked to have the combo of Pitts and Penix. Okay. Frank says Najee's extremely slow now. Najee's never been fast. And yeah, that's his problem. Obviously, you don't get any big plays. Derek says, Mason, what are your thoughts on a chat feature on Underdog? My thoughts on a chat. Okay, one, let's all be on the same page. I have absolutely no say whatsoever in what Underdog does. Let's all be on the same page with that. My opinion does not matter. Second thing is, what I would guess is I would be guessing that they don't want collusion in drafts is why they don't have a chat, because we just launched like the public mock draft lobbies for dynasty leagues on Flock Fantasy, and there's a chat in these, and I'm not going to talk down on the devs we have over at flockfantasy.com. Love the guys, but I would imagine the team that they have at Underdog Fantasy is a lot more capable than what I'm working with. Probably have significantly more money going into their dev team. So I'm sure Underdog could do it. I'm sure there's a reason they're not doing it. And if I was a guessing man, I would say maybe they don't want collusion. They probably don't want people saying like, oh, you take this quarterback, then I'll take this quarterback, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Zeus says there's no draft chat for obvious reasons. Limit toxicity. That could be it as well. We have immediately after John says chat feature just to talk crap would be nice. Yeah. Get real toxic real quick. So we are done with quarterback. We are just running back, wide receiver, tight end, and every position here is in play for us. I almost want to go with like a free agent wide receiver and just play the what if game. What if Keenan Allen goes to San Francisco? Probably doesn't happen, but what if? We'll go Keenan 179. Frank says, what does Nevada have against Underdog? Also can't draft in NY only lines. So my understanding, again, and I'm just speaking out of my butt, is a state like Nevada, you have the traditional casinos there that have strong lobbyists that go, we don't want fantasy sports here. We want the casino market to be the deal. That would be my assumption. Yeah. People in the chat looking like the same. Now, let me show off what we have with our team. We're probably going to take 2 running backs at the very end. Wide receiver, we have Neighbors, Nico, Evans, Worthy, Downs, Leggett, Keenan. So obviously, we're hoping that these wide receivers at the top can come through for us in a big-time way. Running back, we have Harvey, Walker, Swift, Najee. Probably going to take 2 running backs late as well. Tight end, we have Hawkinson and Schultz. Quarterback, we have Purdy, McCarthy, Bryce Young. But I think we'll probably queue up 2 running backs. Girlfriend and I are going to go to a concert tonight, and I may or may not be running late. So probably call it here. But again, really appreciate y'all hanging out with me. Of course, we'll be live tomorrow night as well. So if you want to hop into an Underdog draft with us then or whenever, or if you just want to go get an Underdog draft by yourself, they're all on Underdog Fantasy. You can find the link in the description, comment section. Use promo code FLOCK. You'll get that 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, you'll get my 2025 fantasy football rankings and draft guide cheat sheet. Here's the map of where Underdog's available. And again, it's best ball, so there's no time commitment at all during the season. It's how I'm able to draft hundreds of teams every year. It's how I've done it for years, how I'll continue to do it in the future for years, while not sacrificing any of the time that I spend with my main fantasy football team during the year. But thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. Really do appreciate you hanging out with me. And yeah, really hope I get to see y'all tomorrow night.